Hello and welcome to the Kearley Cultivation Internet Broadcast. I say that because we've also have a podcast that goes on to like Spotify, and I do some stuff on Instagram, and this is on YouTube and hopefully Facebook or whatever, right? It's anywhere on the internet. I've been kind of doing a podcast and playing around with this world for 8 years or something like that, and I've never really been able to figure out how to like amplify my signal. And so obviously the answer was right in front of me. Even at the time when I started, I was trying to get on YouTube and trying to get video and stuff going, but I'm not the most technically proficient, technologically proficient individual, and I often get frustrated and I give up easily. My wife says that, I say I give up easily. I don't ever give up. I just will stop doing it for a little while and then I'll come back to it later, which is, kind of what I'm doing. So did I ever give up on YouTube? I guess not, because I'm doing it again. So anyway, today we're going to be planting potatoes. I am going to title this episode Doomsday potatoes, or like apocalypse potatoes or something like that. A little bit of that is clickbaity, but at the same time, you should kind of, view our food source and where you get your food, and if you as fragile, and if you do not produce your own food, then define apocalypse, right? As an entity that is greater than you, that has control over you, and can put that force on you. That was not a good way of saying that, but essentially controls you through different mechanisms. And our society at large overall does have these tendencies, right, to control and manipulate and whatever. So anyway, hopefully you enjoy this episode. This is not really a tutorial. It's more of just kind of showing you how I put stuff in the ground and how I do my compost and stuff like that. I am not a professional potato planter. This is only my second season ever planting potatoes, and I've already learned a lot this season about potatoes that I didn't know previously to, doing this little bed, planting these beds. What prompted this is, it's time to get garden going anyway. It's at the end of February. Dang, I cannot believe that. It's at the end of February, and this is kind of, March is typically when we get our last freeze in this area. And so I'm going to go ahead, I'm starting to get stuff out, especially like potatoes and stuff that are, under the ground. We're not going to get a super hard freeze. We might just get a freeze that, we'll get the peach trees or whatever's budding out, probably the wild grapes and maybe even the plums and stuff like that. So, which is a bummer, but it seems to happen every single year. We hardly ever don't have that late frost that just knocks everything out. But anyway, I'm a firefighter, and somebody donated a bag of potatoes up to the station. We used some of the potatoes, just cooked with them, but it was a bunch of potatoes, and half of them were already sprouting. So I went ahead and brought them up here, or brought them home from the station, chopped them up, and threw them in the ground. And so I have since learned, I don't know if I've even said this yet, but I have since learned that there's an determinate and an indeterminate type of potato, and most of them are determinate. I can't even remember now. So this is not a tutorial. This is just showing you how I do it, and hopefully you will see this, and if you are seeing this, then hopefully you're putting some stuff in the ground yourself. That is one of the main lessons thus far that I have gleaned from my gardening experience, was that the key is just to put them in the ground. Like, put seeds in the ground, put plants in the ground. I know I'm gonna lose a lot of plants this year, as happens every year. Last year was grasshoppers descended upon us and just wreaked havoc. It was terrible. And this year, like my potatoes that I just got out there, I guess I left the soaker hose on last night. So one of the 3 beds was flooded out this morning. And that's not good because potatoes, you're supposed to keep them a little bit drier, I think. So I might have already killed one of the beds. Who knows? But hopefully you are putting stuff in the ground. Hopefully you are preparing for this next season, and you're going to grow a lot of stuff. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the video, and then, I'm just going to talk while the video plays, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so here, this is the back corner of what this season's plot is going to be. If you can see the ground, how there's a vegetation line, there's some vegetation within the square, but I had tarped this off for a couple of months and killed the ground, the vegetation on the ground, without tilling it up. I'm trying to use the no-till method, which is, you want to disturb the soil as little as possible. So if you can see, most of this soil, I'm not disturbing. I'm trying to dig down because I was wanting to add compost in, and then I was also thinking, I've seen a lot of people plant their tomato or their potatoes in a little ditch, and I had heard somebody, one of the videos that I watched talked about, you dig an 8-inch ditch, you barely cover the potatoes with dirt, then you barely cover them with dirt, and then once they sprout and they grow up a little bit, you throw a little bit more dirt on top of them, and then that is what, that's how you do it. So that's what I was kind of trying. This first day was just busting the lines, so I'm going to plant, each bed's going to have 2 rows of potatoes, and this was just busting the lines and then adding compost in. So in the back of the truck, I'll kind of show you here in a second, but in the back of the truck, I've got manure and hay that has been piled up for a long time. Shannon's granddad runs Angus cows, and he feeds them in the field, and he's kind of a little bit of an older dude, a little bit more old school, and so he drops the hay bales in the exact same spot, and he has now done that for multiple seasons. And so the cows end up hanging around there, and they end up pooping all over the place, and so he wants to continue to drop the hay bales there, so he just piles up the poop and what's left over of the hay into this huge pile, and that has been then decomposing for a while. So it's got it's really high manure content. It did have a lot of carbon with the grass whenever they, pushed it all together. But that being said, part of my philosophy is I want to diversify. So I'm diversifying my compost by doing the manure that was over in a pile on the other side of the farm, and my own homemade compost, which you can see me digging in right here. This is not super well finished compost. I kind of got a little lazy this year, and I wasn't on top of my compost quite like I should have been. So this pile is mostly it's stuff out of the garden bed. Leftover stuff that I raked up and then just put into this pile, and I stir it occasionally, and I mix other stuff into it too. And so a lot of it, I was having to pull out grass and stuff because I didn't really want the grass in there. However, this is just kind of showing me throwing the several different ones. A little side note, I've started trying to garden barefoot a little bit more, or just be out here barefoot. In the coming months, it'll be impossible because all of, everything in Texas is sharp and pointy and pokey. There's grass burrs and stuff like that. But right now, since at the end of the season, most of that stuff's done. So I'm just kind of showing you how clumpy it is and how it's kind of moist. The compost kind of feels a little bit like a sponge. Here you can see the ditches that I dug. It's a little side note for anybody, I kind of baited y'all in with the apocalypse potatoes, but I was going to talk a little bit about this. A lot of my feeds are, kind of calling or predicting another civil war. And I heard a couple of guys that were fighting in Ukraine. They weren't Ukrainians. A couple of guys that were fighting in Ukraine, they were talking about just some of their stuff. And I was like, I was trying to imagine, I was trying to put myself in the position of being in a trench, right? Digging a trench. These were, I don't know how long, probably 15 foot, 8-inch deep trenches that I dug with like a pickaxe. And I'm in decent shape, and my freaking back was killing me by the end of it. So, if you're in good shape now and you think that you're ready for some sort of an apocalyptic situation, think again. I mean, there's going to be a lot of stuff that, 100 years ago probably wouldn't have been a big deal. Guys probably could have gone out there and dug ditches all day and not complained about it. As you can see here, I did smarten up. I was shoveling out over that far string. And here, then I just was like, why don't I just dump it in there and rake it out? Because that's what I'm going to be doing anyway. So, but back to the barefoot thing, trying to like kind of ground myself a little bit more. And also just kind of get my natural foot movement, kind of back. So anyway, that's kind of the reason I'm barefoot. And part of the reason I have a pistol on my hip was because I had to run over and get the compost, and we've been having a lot of like wild pigs and stuff recently over there, so I just had it just in case I saw some wild pigs or something, and then I left it on. So, and plus, what's more gangster than like gardening barefoot with a gat on your hip? Like, that's pretty cool, I feel like. So anyway, here I'm still doing the same thing, dumping them, and then after I dump the compost in, so I'm adding quite a bit of compost material in, and then I just rake it out flat. And so then after I raked it all out flat, I just let it sit overnight, and kind of basically, I don't really know, I don't know if there was a point to letting it sit overnight. Mostly it was because I was tired, and this took me a lot of the day. And once my kids get home and stuff, I still work out in the garden with my kids because they love working out in the garden, but the production level drops down substantially. So here I'm just raking out the beds, kind of getting them, and you can see a lot of the grass and stuff. This is another way of kind of like combing the material out of the unfinished compost. Here's just a little quick shot of the moon. I do have a couple of facts about the moon that I looked up in some anomalies. Some crazy stuff around the moon. I don't know if y'all looked at it, but one of the things that I recently kind of came across was that it's possible the moon isn't orbiting the Earth. The Earth and the moon are both orbiting a separate point, and then they are both orbiting the sun. That's part of the reason that the moon can be in a geosynchronous orbit, and we get some of the phases and stuff. It's kind of interesting. But also, this property that we're on has been occupied by a member of Shannon's family for like 160 years or something like that. I mean, it's been a long time. And there's a lot of history out in here in this dirt, and I find stuff like this all the time. It's just that has like an 856 or something like that on it. Now, I don't know exactly what this was. It was like some sort of a cap for I don't know what. I don't know if it was like for a tractor or something. And then I also found these other like rocks that kind of popped up, and what's real interesting, I started following some different relic. That's probably a piece of asphalt, actually. And so I don't know when the asphalt got in there, but I thought it was interesting because it was mixed in with all these other little rocks. Most of the time, I would have just tossed these rocks off to the side and not even looked at them again. But just knowing that there's been continuous occupation in this area for thousands of years, every rock I feel like kind of needs to be looked at and maybe examined a little bit. Who knows? I mean, those could have been Indian, fire pit rocks or something like that. So anyway, here I am just the next day. So I'll let all that compost like kind of sit in and like solidify, if you will. I don't exactly know if that's the right term, but the next day I came back and basically just, I mean, it's mostly just removing the compost that I put into the ditches. So it wasn't quite as hard digging this second one as it was digging the first one, but still pretty painful. I mean, takes a lot of back, just bending over in that position, and whenever we spend most of our time sitting, in a seated position, these different positions get you burning. But part of my philosophy out here on the farm, especially with my garden, is I'm going to try to do as much of it manually as possible, not employing tractors and tillers and different things. Part of that is also like the Doomsday, the apocalypse style. It's like, imagine if all of the electricity and everything went away. How would you function? How would you be able to function? And that's kind of the thought process behind this. It's like, hey, turn off my power. I'll just keep growing potatoes. These are the sprouts. I actually wish I had time to let them sprout more. I've got some still in the box that I'm letting them sprout more, and then I'm gonna plant them in the ground too. But those are the little sprouts. I cut them into, tried shoot for like golf ball size, and with just making sure that they have like a little eye that's sprouting on them. This I actually got faster at too, because first I was just kind of dropping them in and positioning them, but by the later beds I just dumped them out. Seemed to work fine. I was trying to gap them out about a foot in between everyone, so the two rows were about a foot apart, and then I was trying to stagger them about a foot apart. Also, this was a very laborious task, planting these potatoes. It took me I guess it was 2 days, not full working on them the whole time, but off and on working on them all day for 2 days. And then once you get the bed in, now these 3 beds will now be permanent beds. Each year I will add more compost to them. I'll use my broad fork and kind of, break them, try to decompact the ground a little bit more over the next couple of seasons, and work at it. But anyway, just throwing these in. One of the things that I do think is lost in our modern life is the ability to just slow down and take your time on something and enjoy the process. I could have done all of this way faster with a tiller. One, I'm limited because I don't have a tiller with me. I mean, I've got friends that have tillers and I could go pick it up, but then you're spending time driving around picking up your equipment. This, I did it all by hand. All of the compost was made on farm, on site. I didn't have to spend any money on this at all, which, I mean, I know a lot of y'all are probably looking at it like, well, I'm glad you didn't spend any money on that, because you would have been ripped off or whatever. But I think, sometimes doing something manually is more rewarding than doing it, mechanized or whatever. So I do think that is something to consider and think about. Do we want to outsource everything? Do we want to outsource our food production? Do we want to outsource our communications? Do we want to outsource our power? These are all questions that I'm just starting to ask myself, and kind of, hopefully ask y'all. Hopefully y'all can leave some comments down in the comment section. Let me know what you think, or what your thoughts about different stuff are. But yeah, anyway, it was fun. Hopefully I didn't lose that bed by flooding it out. I know potatoes tend to rot, mold, mildew, that kind of stuff. So we'll see. I'll give you an update. Check out on my Instagram. My Instagram is, man, this is weird because it's like the mirror, but Panhandle Primate on Instagram. We also have a page called The Curly Cultivation. but it's not super active. My wife is busy working, and neither of us are really social media people to begin with anyway, so it's a little bit of a stretch to run multiple different social, sites. But just follow me on Panhandle Primate for updates on the garden and just to see different stuff that we're doing around here. The farm is growing, and I'm really hoping to get it more productive. And I'm also hoping to be more productive in this media production side. I consume a lot of media. I watch a lot of YouTube videos and listen to, Spotify and books and stuff. And it does always hit me. It does always sit with me where I'm I'm a consumer, the food that I eat, somebody else produces. The media that I consume, somebody else produces, it's just, I'm hoping that, this next iteration of humanity will, we can take all of the stuff that has benefited us in the modern world and meld it with a lot of the stuff from the old world, the way that humans have lived for a really long time, that really defines us and helps us to be human and remember that we're human. So anyway, thank you. This is the first episode of this new whatever format that I'm doing. Hopefully you enjoy. Like, subscribe, follow. Like I said, check me out on Instagram, Panhandle Primate. And, hopefully you can check out some more. A side note, go to the No-Till Growers podcast. If you're really wanting to get into this world and you're looking for tutorials, that is, one of the best, that's the best channel that I've found so far to, see tutorials and stuff. So, get out there, grow your own food, get in shape, exercise, drink a lot of water. Let's take control of our lives. So, until next time, hopefully you enjoyed it. Peace out.